love my HBCU. And Bob, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, too tired. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They can test the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball, So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Maybe not. Mike Washington is still on assignment. I think Charles is on assignment, but he's going to try to come in partway through the show. We'll see if we can catch him and bring him into the groove to get us going. But with that being said, I do have a teammate that's going to bring it today. One of the guys, Bryan, is making it back for the homework assignment, so we appreciate him returning to class. He's a scholar and a gentleman. With that being said, welcome to episode 809 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports from institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-hosts, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and as you see, Bryan Fulford. Sitting in for those two gentlemen as we start. We'll see if we can get Charles in here. But we're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live. The Case-Waste 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper in a beautiful home at Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Bryan, let me apologize. I called you gentlemen, but I'm trying to get rid of my my tongue. Eurocentric tongue at times and I learned this and it kind of throws you off, and you'll see why you don't necessarily want to call somebody gentleman. You know, gentleman was a term they used in Old England when there was a husband that would supposedly gently backslap his mate or wife when they were out of control. So yeah, so when I learned that, I was like, I need to get rid of my colonized tongue. If you go. So let me say, brother Bryan Fulford, how about that?
Doc, I tell you, I learned something new. I learn something new every episode, every chance I get with you, man. That's new. That's new. But I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, well, you know better, you do better, as they say. So I'll try to refrain from that, and I've stopped using it for the most part. But every once in a while, that colonized tongue sticks up, and it gets you. Almost like a snake, a rattlesnake. If you ain't careful, the fangs up, they'll sneak up on you and get you and take you to the back sled. Talking about softball, hopefully they don't do that to the Prairie View Panthers, but it's a whole nother segment. Today is baseball talk, but we'll get into some championship talk because we do have that moment to do that. And so I'm interested in talking about that. I had my cigar to the side, but I don't know if that's appropriate. For, football, you bring the cigars out. We've kind of gotten used to that. But is that a thing in softball? Even baseball, I guess you would say. I had my own cigar basketball tournament. Bryan, did you remember the tournament basketball swag championship?
Yeah, oh, look. I vividly remember it, and I was one of the people. Remember, I was one of the people that told people pre-tournament. I said, hey, if you can get to a market, 17 to 1.
I got to learn how to make sure I take care of my business on that. I'm not used to that part, but yeah, you said that, so I got to use.
Yeah, they were one of my two favorites. I was kicking myself.
Take your offerings. Your blessings, I got to learn how to appreciate your blessings when you put them out there. Mm-hmm. I'm learning. You're much further ahead on that side of the game. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency. And THG Agency is a company that provides sporting, educational consulting, and data analytics. With that being said, Fort Valley State draws Pepperdine in NCAA men's volleyball tournament. His third straight appearance from the SIAC.com, which is pretty cool. Fort Valley. I know you were down there and kept us up to date in terms of Fort Valley State. Wildcats are 16-12. Tremendous season. They play a Pepperdine team, number one seed in a lot of ways, 23-6. That has a lot of history. The game is in Noblesville, Indiana. It's at the arena at Innovational Mile, May 1st. At 7 p.m. Eastern, at 6 o'clock Central, as you all know. Fascinating as Fort Valley State secured the SIAC's automatic bid following 3-pit victory 2026 SIAC's men's volleyball tournament. Pretty good. Kudos. Anything that you want to shine a little light that we didn't think about since you had the privilege of covering the Wildcats?
I'll admit that was the first time that I had watched and paid attention to them, but they have some outstanding athleticism. Well coached, well organized. They really have some high flyers, and so I didn't see too many weaknesses. What I did find interesting is the only team that pushed them in that tournament was the whole school, Edward Waters, and they pushed them to 5 sets. So, and that Edward Waters team was a young team. So I think Edward Waters trending in the right direction for the future, but the time is now for that Fort Valley team with some seniors, and they definitely have a player. Their player of the year is an outstanding athlete, and I mean a high riser, high flyer, and I mean So I'm interested to see how they do against Pepperdine, who is a, nationally ranked, well-known team. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how they handle that.
Good stuff. Any other news that you want to get to that's on your mind? What you're thinking about that you want to share?
Well, I was trying to, dig through some of the, the latest news regarding the SIAC softball championships.
Yeah, it's going on now, right? Which is going to be played between Fort Valley State Wildcats. Thinking about Fort Valley State, they've gotten hot. They knocked off Spring Hill, who was undefeated in the tournament until they ran into them yesterday. The forced this final championship game. So you're right. It's supposed to start at 5 o'clock Eastern time, so it should be well on its way. Maybe towards the end, might even have a champion. But yes, that was fascinating as I looked into that. And while you may be going a little deeper into that, I'll give some updates because we do have champions out of the HBCUAC. You have Talladega that officially crowned championship as they're going back to the NCAA tournament. But based on the number of teams in the HBCUAC, Houston-Tillotson was the team that made it to the championship game that Talladega defeated. But they will also get a automatic bid to the tournament. So both teams are going dancing on the dirt, if you would, in terms of the diamond as they go into the NAIA playoffs. Then on the softball team, which was a thriller, Dillard got it done as they win their championship. They do a 2 out of 3 championship, and Stillman forced a third game. And this is so they ultimately beat Stillman 3 out of 4 times, but it was all on the line. Ended up being a 10-7 victory. Got a little close there, where Stillman put up, I think, a 5-spot or whatever and got it to 9-7. Dillard put 1 run in the bottom of that 6th inning and then closed out things in the top of the 7th and did not have to bat as they were celebrating after the 3rd out. So I want to give a little kudos there in terms of the HBCUAC as they were getting it done. CIAA tournament, Brian. You have Bowie State getting it done, defeating Claflin, which was a top 5 team. Claflin did make it to the championship game, but this is a double-double, meaning back-to-back for the Bulldogs of Bowie State getting it done out of CIAA. I think I kind of caught you up. You find any information on the Fort Valley?
Yeah, I did find the stats to that, and I think softball in the CIAA is in the final week of the regular season this week. So
was that last year's championship that they was on?
You know what, Doc? Who knows? Maybe
I went to the website. You're right. That website different up there.
So let me get off of that because now I'm confused again. I've been confused all week trying to promote or talk about that, and I have no idea what's going on.
You really have. You did a good job.
I tried. Okay, so looking at the live stats again, you made mention of the fact that earlier today, Fort Valley State defeated Spring Hill 4-1, forcing the I don't know, what do you call it? The what if or the final game of the tournament, and currently right now in the bottom of the 7th. Where Fort Valley State is the home team, they are trailing 10-4 to Spring Hill. So currently, as I'm looking at, Fort Valley State, it's 1 out with a runner on second. So they got a lot of work to do. The rally caps are probably out. Everything's turned upside down and inside out, and they got a lot of work to do if they're going to pull off the upset over Spring Hill, who was the 1 seed in the West.
What inning is that? And score again?
It says bottom of the 7th, which is the final inning, unless Fort Valley puts up 6 to force a 8th inning. That's
a lot.
Final 2 outs.
That's a lot. But credit to Fort Valley State. They went on a hot run.
The 4 seed. They were the 4 seed out of the East. I mean, who thought that they would get as far as they got?
Yeah, it was tough. Tuskegee in that Albany State, I knew it was something going down when you see the number 1 seed out of the East and the number 1 seed out of the West playing an elimination game yesterday. I was like, ooh, somebody going on after having a wonderful season. It was not to be. So that was fascinating when you look at that. So a lot of good stuff there when you talk about that. Any thoughts in terms of the HBCUAC with Talladega and Houston Tillotson facing off in that championship game, and Talladega get it done. Shout out to Talladega and the media that HBCUAC was doing for the tournament interviews. They brought in his son, and boy, he did a great interview at the end of it. Hidalgo, I think is his name, but he showed out. Young, little tight, was proud of his dad, proud of the team, and they say he stole the show at the tournament.
I bet. No, I mean, congratulations to Dega. They have been quite impressive over the last couple seasons here. So
sure, yeah.
Definitely have figured out something, and a very strong program in the NAIA and at this level. So be interested to see what they can do in the tournament.
I am as well. Shout out to Dillard. Man, they played some good softball coming up, getting it done. And when you build a team 3 out of 4 times in the tournament, including the best of 3 after Stillman forces a championship game, that's some good softball in terms of championship on the line. So
the defending champs at that. Stillman, let's not forget they ran the perfect conference season last year, right? And so, and they lost a lot of people. So that tells you kind of the trajectory of that Stillman program, the fact that they were able to turn around after that season a year ago, lose a lot of seniors, and then come back and get all the way to basically the final game, a 3rd game.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's take our first break. We'll come back on the other side. We'll get into our poll ranking for the mid-major division baseball team, and we'll see. I will say there is a change at the top. We'll see what that looks like and where it is and who that will be. If you've been listening, you might get an indication of what that may look like. But with that being said, We'll be back on the other side to discuss it and see what Bryan thinks about the top 5 in week number 7, mid-major division for baseball, as we are starting to close things out over the next couple of weeks, naming some champions both in baseball and softball at the mid-major division level. But we'll see what the poll rankings say after this first break.
For over 30 years, HBCU Image has been more than just an apparel store. We've been a movement, a statement, a legacy. We celebrate the pride, the purpose, and the culture that make historically black colleges and universities legendary. Whether you're a student or a lifelong supporter, our gear lets you wear your HBCU story with confidence and style. Because when you wear HBCU Image, you're not just wearing clothes. You're wearing culture. You're wearing pride. You're wearing purpose. HBCU Image, a Kenny T's company.
From cancer care to accidental injuries to cardiac care, we all know that there are times that you can't control what happens in your life. But with Globe Life Family Heritage, you can be prepared to weather the storm when it comes. Call Dr. Beverly Eagle Rogers at 877-300-8269 or visit the website at globelifefamilyheritage.com. With over 25 years of serving communities, Dr. Beverly Eagles Rogers is here to help you and your family through difficult times. Dr. Beverly takes pride in Globe Life being one of the few companies that returns 100% of premiums to clients that stay healthy. So for more information, call Dr. Beverly Eagle Rogers at 877-300-8269 or visit the website at globelifefamilyheritage.com.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food? Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door. Tell them I'm hungry.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Touch the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're here with Bryan Fulford. We're going to give you week 7 in terms of the mid-major division poll rankings. Let's go ahead and bring it up so we can get in a little bit of discussion as we are pretty much solidified on the top 5. It doesn't seem like anybody can sneak in. But we do have the SIAC tournament coming up starting tomorrow. I guess one of those teams can get hot when you think about Benedict or maybe even Morehouse Maroon Tigers, thinking about A.D. Drew as he's down at the tournament himself, finishing off on softball now, heading to do some work for baseball. One of the businessmen's in the business out there, Bryan.
Stays busy, boy, don't he?
Sure do. Let's look at those receiving votes. Kind of snuck that out a little bit there, but we'll do it officially in terms of receiving votes as Benedict Tigers that sit at 21-11, 19-11, just out of the top 5. You have the Stillman Tigers, 24-18, 14-6, 29 points. And then you have Morehouse Maroon Tigers sitting at 22-19, 17-14 in terms of what they did in the conference race. 21 points, so they are just outside of the top 5. Looking in, can they get hot in the tournament and make some noise to finish the season where they end up in the top 5? We shall see. Speaking of the top 5, we have number 5, Houston Tillerson Rams. Tremendous season for the Rams. As I said, they will be going to the tournament. Record is actually 33-18, 18-3. As they did get to the championship game, they lost it to Talladega and won it pretty much going away. But Houston Tennyson will get postseason play. It'll be fascinating to see what that looks like with 41 points. They were ranked 5. Can they move up depending on what some of these next teams do in the SIAC tournament? Next 3 teams, I would say. And number 4, which is Savannah State Tigers, that are 26-18, 23-10, one first place vote, 44 points. They will rank 4 and remain there as they were there last week. At number 3, another team that stays in their position, which is Edward Water Tigers, 21-19, 24-9 conference race. They do also have one first place vote, 45 points in terms of what that looks like there as they continue to get it done. Looking at number 2, Albany State Golden Rams did not play, but they fall 28-16, 24-6, 2 first place votes, 58 points, previous rank, number 1, bringing us to Talladega Tornadoes that sit at 32-17, 19-2, 3 first place votes. They jump on 1 spot, take over the number 1 spot in week number 7. 3 first place votes, 61 points as you see there. Narrow margin there over Albany State, but they put their work in. They will get a chance to do a little dance in the tournament. We'll see what that means. And Albany State has worked for themselves in the SIC tournament. With that being said, shout out to Lennon and the rest of the folks checking us out, Chuck and Emma, Adam Spencer, Edwin Moore. But with that being said, Brian, going back to you, what are your thoughts in terms of the top 5 in week number 7?
I think it's a perfect hit. Talladega, having taken care of business in their conference, deserves for the moment to be considered the top team. And I think given the fact that Albany State, Edward Waters, and Savannah State are all sitting where they're at and receiving votes, the winner of the SIAC will probably pick up. I mean, if you look at the first place votes, that's 4 first place votes among those 3 SIAC teams. I would imagine, conference loyalty, that whoever comes out of that mix of 3 might have enough votes to move to number 1. Might be a heck of a jump to see a Savannah State jump all the way to number 1. But hey, if Savannah State moves through the tournament and ends up facing and defeating an Edward Waters or Albany State, very possible that they could rise as high as 2 and might even surpass Talladega. So right now, all looks good.
Yeah, to get to the tournament, that means they probably would have to get at least 4 wins. Mm-hmm. With 5, so you're talking about 30, 31 wins. Maybe they lose near the end and have to come back and do a double-double. So they might get 1 loss. So you're talking about 30-19 or clean sweeps. They can get 30-18, which would really be impressive, or even 31-19 if you would. That's a nice statement. SIAC Talladega, which means especially if they happen to take out El Waters, Albany, or El Waters, Spring Hill on the way, or if they do all 3, El Waters, Albany State, and Spring Hill, I think you're right. They would have an argument. But absolutely, you get any of those 3 teams win the SIAC, depending on how they do it and who they beat, I think there is a chance for any of those 3, particularly Albany State, obviously, to be the easiest one to get it done.
Well, let me give you a quick update as I just happened to click on the SIC baseball tournament brackets because today is the opening day of the tournament.
Nice.
Edward Waters defeated Benedict 12-11 in a 3 versus 6 matchup. Yeah, a lot of runs. And when I give you this other score, hey, look, Doc, when I give you this other score, you're gonna know that the bats are out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, number 7 Miles with a 15-11 victory over number 2 Albany State.
Woo! Albany goes down.
Albany State already having to move to the losers bracket.
It's hard day one in the losers bracket.
Yeah.
You would think being one of the top teams in the conference, they were actually number 2 going in, as you said. Behind Spring Hill, we had them previous number 1 in our ranking, number 2 in terms of HBCU rankings. They were number 1 in the small Black College 9 poll rankings in terms of what they bring. So if any team has the ability, you think, to do that, it'd be fascinating. Let me give a shout out to Isaiah Wilson checking us out. Good evening. Go Panthers. I hear you. Shout out.
And I think Albany State did this. If my memory recalls, they did this a year, either last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
yeah, where they lost the game early, either day 1 or day 2, and had to fight their way through the losers bracket. And I think they ended up winning the doggone tournament.
Yep.
Yes.
I remember that. Hey, that was a heck of a statement.
Those scores are correct according to the SIAC's website. 12-11 for Edward Waters, 15-11 for Miles.
No doubt. Shout out to Arby Parker in here checking us out as baseball talking full-fledged. Good updates there, Brian, in terms of the tournament. Oh, boy, I'll tell you, it gets fascinating.
Got a softball final, too, Doc. Got a softball final over in the SIC.
Final.
Yeah, unfortunately for Fort Valley State, the Wildcats, they were unable to finish off the miracle season. The miracle run comes to an end. They lose 10-4 to Spring Hill. Spring Hill put 4 insurance runs up in the top of the 7th inning. They had a 6-4 lead. Valley had cut the deficit to 6-4. And then, unfortunately, Valley gave up 4 runs and unable to answer. So Spring Hill ends up winning the SIC softball championship.
Spring Hill is leaving with the trophy. Fort Valley State tried to do their best to say not so fast here on the softball side, but credit to Spring Hill as they will be moving to Conference Carolina. Talked about that a little bit the other day.
Is that next year or the following year?
It's next year. When you see NIA Division II, they don't tend to have the buyouts that you see at the Division I. So you really don't see them waiting more than a couple of months when they make their announcements. So most of the time you see that it's the following academic athletic year. So great question, though, in terms of what that looks like. So let's take our follow-up break, our second break, if you would. We'll come back. See if maybe we can sneak Charles in here, see if he's ready to go. If not, we're going to get to the major division and talk a little about the poll rankings there. I know Brian is looking forward to see what these rankings are based on what took last week to see where his team will be ranked. We pretty know who's number 1, and you may be surprised in terms of is anybody else going to get a first-place vote? Outside of Bethune-Cookman, especially taking 2 out of 3 to the number 2 team on the road. Well, stick with us. We'll be right back after this next break and see what the poll rankings say. And then we'll get Brian to comment on those rankings as well. Again, we'll be right back after this next break.
From cancer care to accidental injuries to cardiac care, we all know that there are times that you can't control what happens in your life. But with Globe Life Family Heritage, you can be prepared to weather the storm when it comes. Call Dr. Beverly Eagle Rogers at 877-300-8269 or visit the website at globelifefamilyheritage.com. With over 25 years of serving communities, Dr. Beverly Eagles Rogers is here to help you and your family through difficult times. Dr. Beverly takes pride in Globe Life being one of the few companies that returns 100% of premiums to clients that stay healthy. So for more information, call Dr. Beverly Eagle Rogers at 877-300-8269 or visit the website at globelifefamilyheritage.com.
and we have to fund our kids in these colleges, and we have to make sure our kids have seats in these colleges.
And what about HBCUs? You mentioned.
Absolutely. You got to fund them all, and you've got to make sure they're properly funded. You know, the real reason why I went after Comcast and Charter, it didn't have anything to do with my cable networks. It didn't. What happened was a gentleman wanted to do the Black College Sports Network in partnership with the HBCUs, and Comcast did not accept it, and that would have made a lot of money for these black colleges.
Absolutely.
And it would have educated the Black College Sports Network. This is what he wanted to do. That would have educated a lot of black kids. And when they didn't do that, that's when I came off the bench and said, okay, I'm going to light you up like a Christmas tree. Okay. That was the real reason why I got into it, was when I saw what happened with the Black College Sports Network, which I don't own. I just knew.
Why did you buy it?
I just knew. I just knew that these black.
I like that talk.
All right. I knew that these black colleges were going to benefit, and these black kids were going to get the education that they deserved and not have to pay.
There's a shot. To right. It could be. Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do, and all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Movement, a statement, a legacy. We celebrate the pride, the purpose, and the culture that make historically black colleges and universities legendary. HBCU Image, a Kenny T's company.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Press the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Hey, Charles, how you doing this evening? Appreciate you finding a way to join us. Right on time for the major division. Did you hear any of the mid-major rankings? Little change today.
Okay.
Talladega ended up winning over Houston-Tillerson in the HBCUAC. Both teams will get bids to the NIA tournament, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
But in part of that, with Albany State not playing, when the poll rankings came out, we've learned that they actually went down today in the SIAC tournament to Miles. But that wasn't factored in, so don't get too excited about that.
Wow.
It is something to consider in that matchup. So they have to come out of the loser bracket, which is something to keep your eyes on. But with that being said, today's rankings had actually Talladega getting the number one spot and Albany State falling to 2. So
that's fair. Yeah.
Just wanted to get you in there. But as we get going here, talking about the major division, as appropriately as shown, UAPB, Golden Lions, 12-9. Tough week, close games, but they go to the Bluff and face a red hot.
Yeah.
Or is that a canary yellow? What is it? Powder blue? Hot?
You better say Columbia blue.
I just,
Crookers get you, Doc.
Hey, I'm just saying. Teasing my guys over there a little bit since they've been picking on me. So, but UAPB drops out 18-27, 12-9. They got swept, seriously. But all the games were close. So you just have those kind of series. But credit to the Jaguars in all seriousness. They're red hot and had won 10 straight in terms of what they're getting done. So receiving votes, as you see here, Alabama State Hornets, 23-19, 13-8, talking about another hot team. You got Norfolk State Spartans, 16-24, 12-12. UAPB Golden Lions are still in the mix outside receiving votes. Again, overall 18-27, but 12-9 in the conference race. Let's get in the top 5. Only team in the top 5 that does not have an overall winning record when you look at the top 5 is Grambling State Tigers. They do have a winning record in terms of 12-7. They were only able to get one of the 3 games against the Braves. They did get that win, but we'll see how that pans out later in the season. Above them, Southern Jaguars is kind of started their winning ways when they went up to Grambling up north and swept the Tigers as well. They are now 21-20, 14-7, playing some really good baseball, 71 points. They do move up a spot from 5 last weekend, getting it done. Bringing us to number 3, Texas Southern Tigers play their rival, have a big win. They take 2 out of the 3 on the road in that series. They're 20-16, 15-6, 77 points as they are ranked 4. They move up a slot after taking that series against their rival. And number 2, Florida A&M Rattlers, 2 coming in this week, so they stay at 2. But they lose first place votes, much like you saw the Tigers, 21-19, 16-5. They lose 2 out of 3 at home, but they salvage it. They get the 3rd game, a hot one where they come from behind, going back and forth. Make sure that the Wildcats could not bring out the Braves. More importantly, that win allows them just to be 1 game back in the standings of the SWAC, with the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats make a statement in a lot of ways to a lot of people. 31-13, 17-4 overall. All 9 first place votes, 90 points. Ranked number 1, as they have been through much of the season. But they get an impressive series victory. But they're only 1 game up in the standings, so it'll be interesting to see as the season plays out. Can they hold on to things? Important for them would be going in the tournament and seeing if they can do back-to-back. That would be regular seasons and the tournament, which would be a major statement. Since you just joined us, Charles, I'm going to let you jump in here first and get your thoughts in terms of week number 7, top 5 poll rankings for the major division.
Yeah, I think as you said it, Doc, I think Bethune-Cookman, that was a huge statement this past weekend, taking 2 or 3 from Florida A&M, so no problem with 1 and 2 right there. Texas Southern and Southern. Now, that's very interesting, just in taking a look at how hot Southern has been over the past 3 weeks now. They've swept 3 series, 9 games in a row in conference play, and very interesting, out of those 9 games, like 7 out of the 8, they've scored double digits. So they're really, hitting the cover off the ball right now. KJ White's the top hitter in the conference. He's batting .415. So they're playing as good a ball as anybody. And they got Mississippi Valley this upcoming weekend. So you would have to think that the odds are in their favor this upcoming weekend, whereas Texas Southern, they got Alabama State coming in. So it's going to be a very interesting weekend, especially with looking at inclement weather coming across the South over the weekend. How pitching staffs hold up, because you're probably going to have some doubleheader games. You're probably going to have some rainouts this upcoming weekend.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Brian, what are your thoughts on the top 5?
I'm trying to recall the last time in a mid-season, not beginning or end, that somebody had all first place votes. I mean, am I being a prisoner of the moment? Has it been a while, or have I just not been paying attention? It's been a while, right?
What, Jackson State 23 season, 22 season?
Yeah, how long ago was that, Charles? This is 2026. Come on.
I'm just saying. You say you didn't want to be a prisoner of the moment. I'm just going back to when they was undefeated.
3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I knew it'd been a minute. I knew it had been a minute. So more like 4 years worth. But anyway, so dare I say, something hit me as I'm looking at these 3 teams, and then I thought about the softball poll the other day. This year, maybe I'm early. I hope I am. But given what we saw in football, men's and women's basketball, is the West back? Is the West back? I mean, really think about it for a second. I mean, since conference expansion, we have talked in large part about the East.
Right. Rightfully so.
Yeah, this year the West has risen, and again, we're going to see in the softball tournament next week what the West does. But I'm looking at these three teams, and even though the best team is Bethune-Cookman right now in the East, and many people feel the second best team is Florida A&M, I mean, we got to take care of business against the West.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's where it's going to be. Yeah. Shout out to Adrian Cook. I like that. He said, watch out, doctor. Watch out. Then he mentioned that I had a blue on. He said, I look good. Is that a Southern blue or is it I like that. It's true. Or is it Jackson State blue? And then Israel 1906 says, hey, man, watch out. Jackson State this, Jackson State that.
That was Charles. I didn't, Charles baited me. He baited me with that one. He did that. That Charles did that. He knew where to touch my, the little funny bone that make my leg kick. He knew what to do.
I love this one though. Leonard said, hey man, we need to hear from Dave. We need answers as to what is going on in the financial aid office at North Carolina A&T. Man, this is a sports show. That's cold-blooded. That is cold-blooded. But great comments, great thoughts when you talk about that. This is a sneaky one. Before we get in our next segment, we'll get into the homework. So we'll talk a little bit about some matchups here. This is a sneaky one. Prairie View and Alabama A&M are 3 games back of Valley. Look at Valley over the next 2 weeks. Look at Prairie View, Alabama A&M over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Whoever comes out of this series, 2 out of 3, or potentially a sweep, it's going to be interesting, particularly if it's Prairie View, because you have that season in the game with Valley.
Yeah.
It can tighten up, and Valley is on a losing streak, so they're not feeling very good. So you could see potentially, right, when you think about that, Alcorn and A&M right there in terms of 3 back. So they're actually 4 back, if you would. Prairie 3 back. So, yeah, things can start to get interesting for the 8th seed. I think Jackson State, with the win they had over Alabama A&M, is giving them some room. Charles talked about where the schedule was going. So you think that they'll continue to take series and really put themselves in comfortable position, maybe push the envelope on Arkansas Pine Bluff in terms of what that may look like. Probably a little stretch.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be very interesting. I mean, they have Alcorn this upcoming weekend in Jackson. They got a game against Southern, but they got Mississippi Valley on the road in Itta Bena. So I think the hardest part of Jackson State's schedule, they've seen it in the front part of the schedule.
Right, that's what I was alluding to, that their schedule is going to be favored. So I'm saying even if they go 2 out of 3, having a 3-game lead, it's going to be interesting with Pine Bluff. Can Pine Bluff match essentially what they're doing? They got to find a way not to get swept again, and they might have enough cushion. But I think there's a bigger delta between Jackson State and Valley. I think the real issue becomes to the 8th seed in terms of Alabama A&M, Prairie View, Valley, even Alcorn. And it kind of starts this week in terms of some matchups. So that's an odd way to look at it, because usually you look at the top matchups. But other than the Arkansas Pine Bluff matchup that you teased out, FAMU Grambling, are some natural good ones that people want to keep your eyes on. But I was just saying sneaky good early. When you start thinking about the end of the season and that 8th seed, that's going to be fascinating to kind of see how that race goes starting this weekend.
That's kind of interesting, Doc, because I hadn't seen. I know Pine Bluff. They're at Bethune this weekend. They get Grambling in Pine Bluff next weekend, but then they follow that up at Jackson State. So that's
right. That's what I'm saying.
They get an opportunity to make a push. So
it's going to be interesting to see where that 7 and 8 seed fall. Right, really 6, 7, and 8 can get interesting over the last couple of weeks. I think the top 5 are solidly in.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll have some interest to see 1, 2, 3 seeds. Obviously, we talked earlier about Texas Southern and FAMU at the end of the season. That could be proceeding
in terms
of where that is, which could be extremely important. So nothing is written in stone.
Yeah, Texas Southern finishes up
Bryan
7
and AD
KU.
talked about just one game between all those top 7 seeds. That's wild. What were your finishing thoughts there, Charles? You were going to jump in there?
No, I was Texas Southern in terms of can they, where they might finish going toward the end of the season. But their next 3 series got Bama State here in Houston. Then they're on the road at Southern, on the road at Florida A&M. So that's going to be a very interesting final series of the week.
That's a gauntlet. If you go 2 out of 3, each of those, I think you made a statement.
Absolutely.
You got to find a way to get 2 out of 3, at least of 3 of those series. You might lose 1 or 2. That gives you 7 wins. At least puts you in striking distance of some folks, and maybe make that last season really mean something against FAMU. With that being said, let's take our last break. We'll come on the other side. We'll go back over the talk. Bryan was able to do a little homework, so we'll start with him after I break it down again. And then we might even get into some private capital infusion is the term, and get your thoughts on that as we will let you do your homework assignment first. Then we'll put in some more information to see and ask the lab listeners to go do some more information, honey. You see what they think about this private equity talk that's been out there. Big 12 has jumped the shark. Be careful. It's not private equity as you traditionally think of. It's more of a private equity in terms of investment. We'll talk a little bit about that after this next break. This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit HBCUPrideJoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
For over 30 years, HBCU Image has been more than just an apparel store. We've been a movement, a statement, a legacy. We celebrate the pride, the purpose, and the culture that make historically black colleges and universities legendary. HBCU Image, a Kenny T's company.
Greetings, Santos. My name is Roland Austin, and I'm one of the directors at the 1876 Athletic Foundation. The 1876 Athletic Foundation was formed to promote the success of all 343 student athletes. Our overall goal is to fund scholarships for all of our student athletes. We ask that you help us in achieving this goal by donating to the 1876 Athletic Foundation via the QR code below or 1876.foundation. Your generous donation will help us continue to assist the needs of all of our Panther athletes. Thanks, and go Panthers.
Touch the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. So on Tuesday, we had a discussion as we opened up the segment where we got into some dialogue and took a deeper dive. They kind of started things on Sunday with Bryan and AD when we were looking at the HBCUAC tournament. And they started their tournament on a Saturday. which means, as you just heard, the championship game of the women ended yesterday, and the men the day before. Part of it going to the extra day was the best 2 out of 3. So the question we put on the table, any tournament usually have a 4 or 5 day window where you play your games. Traditionally, what we've seen in a lot of tournaments is that your championship game would end on a Saturday, maybe Sunday back in the day if you go a little further back in history, which means usually it would start on a Wednesday or Thursday. But the first 2 days of your tournament is when you had all your teams, right? As you know, in any tournament, as you move on through the tournament, it reduces in terms of the number of teams, even if you're doing double headers, where obviously team lose, they have to go home, and you win to keep dancing. Survive and win is some of the terms we've heard in basketball season about these tournaments. So the question comes up, is there some impetus? Does it make more financial sense based on some of the other constraints, like we see with the OVC? If you were talking about playing Division I tournaments, which were focused on early, they literally would have to move the tournament up a week to start on a Saturday, or they would miss the window in terms of selection Sunday. It'd be baseball, softball, if you would, or even basketball, men's and women's in a lot of ways. So ultimately the question is should you start or consider thinking about starting a tournament on a Friday or a Saturday, maybe even more inclined, and ending it where your championship game is on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, such that you would get the fanfare early in the tournament with folks maybe having more ability to travel for a weekend, knowing they're going to see their team at least once. In a baseball tournament, double elimination, you're going to at least see them twice. So you would get a day or two in, move on. Some people might stay around for the championship games. So, Bryan, you said you did a little bit of a data in terms of your homework. So I wanted to hear your perspective, and then we'll go to Charles, and he can opine on what you break down, or he can bring his own homework assignment and give his thoughts in terms of what he did and found out based on this.
And so I realized that I looked at this from a perspective of basketball.
Okay.
And I mentioned that because as I thought about the differences between basketball and softball or baseball, one of the biggest metrics or one of the biggest questions that either format asks is, what is your likelihood of attendance? But not just your attendance, but your opportunity to gain exposure. Because I think when you're dealing with basketball, you have a window to gain greater national exposure because basketball is one of the main revenue generating sports versus your softball and baseball, which I think are more regional, more fan. I think less casual fans would be locked into baseball and softball right now. I mean, the data may show me differently, but when I look at attendance numbers,
fair assessment.
Yeah, I'm basing it off attendance numbers. And I think so. One of the biggest things that, came across, and I'm just going to kind of summarize, is what is your focus on your finish? If you are choosing, or if you're looking at a weekend finish, right, like the current model of the SWAC, then you are probably thinking we want to kind of maximize the revenue by having more people in attendance towards the end. We want to gain more national exposure because it looks like that you have more eyes watching towards the end of the tournament when you start moving into the semifinals and finals. And if you have a city, for example, like Atlanta, right, you're able to add in the extra features that the city of Atlanta brings by having people coming into town maybe on Thursday night than attending games on Friday and attending games on Saturday, staying after Saturday, and then, maybe they leave out on a Sunday. So you're able to kind of draw in that destination angle. But if you are moving into sort of a midweek finish, those types of finishes seem to be more, because obviously that means you're starting on a weekend. So maybe there are budgetary constraints or restrictions that you might be looking into, to say that we're going to start on the weekend. We're able to maximize multiple fields. And then as we start moving into the later games in the middle of the week, we're having to use less fields because we have less teams playing, right? Also, the regionality of the conference. We talked about that national exposure. The fact that you're going to have less fans in the middle of the week possibly than versus the weekend. So having fewer fans means there's probably more people in that surrounding area, like within that either fans, meaning you've got that the diehards, moms, dads, family, or you've got within that 2 to 3 hour radius of the ballpark that might be coming to the game versus people who might make a destination trip. Like, I'm 6 hours away from Atlanta. I'm more likely to make a destination trip to Atlanta for the basketball game coming in on a Thursday night than I am maybe softball or baseball, right? Being as far away as I am in Orlando. And I also think you're also kind of prioritizing your locale. I think if the SWAC softball is in Biloxi, so draw a circle around how far away are you from what schools in Biloxi, Mississippi? Baseball is in Birmingham. So, you're drawing a circle around Birmingham and saying how many people within a 3 to 4 hour radius, obviously you're going to hit Atlanta, Jackson, Montgomery. So I think those are just sort of the summaries of what I was able to kind of track down. I mean, it goes a little deeper, but I thought that was just kind of the summary. What do you guys think about that?
I mean,
I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
No, it makes total sense to me. I mean, if you're going to pull it off, you could do it with baseball or softball. And when you talk about the regionality of it, it's just simply, and I hate this, but just African American fans just don't follow baseball like they used to. So if you're going to be experimental, you can be experimental with the baseball tournament. You can be experimental.
Yeah.
Softball, I think, has a real strong roots, within the South. So it might be a little harder. I think with softball, because I really do feel like you have a real hardcore fan that really follows softball, and we've seen softball grow exponentially. But if there's sort of an experimental sport to play with, baseball might be the one.
Yeah, I like that, Charles, part that you said, that if you're going to take the risk, I think you started off probably with baseball, softball, considering. Brian, the only thing that I would say that I think you have to be careful with, I think the regionality, I don't think it's going to matter so much for fans. Whether you start Wednesday or you start Friday, right? I don't think that is going to matter, because if they're regionally close, they're going to come for whatever period of time they want to come, right? So if you were into basketball, your team's there, you're going to come for 5 days, you're coming from 5 days. And to me, if you're coming from 5 days, you're more likely a fan of the conference than you are of your individual team.
Mm-hmm.
Unless maybe you're the top seed and you really think, 1-2, that there's a chance your team is probably likely to go far. If you're top seed, that means you come in on Wednesday because your team will play Thursday. And you're pretty much saying, all right, you play Wednesday. You come back and you play Friday, so you come in. So I'm not sure if that changes the dynamics. Because usually what we're talking about is where would you get more fans? You tend to get fans that come because they have the availability and time and their team is close to playing for a championship, right? So they come for the semifinals and the finals. So I think the question at hand is, are those fans coming because of the chance to see a championship, or are they coming to root their team and they have the availability to come? If the answer is they're coming because they want to support their team and they have the availability, then doing it on Friday, Saturday doesn't matter. Now you got more fans that are going to come because they have the availability. They want to see the team. And guess what? You have 8 teams that are playing.
Shot in the dark here on just thinking about something. Especially partnering with some of these big, huge African American societal things that happen. Like we saw what happens with the Alpha Derby weekend or things of that nature, where that would be really cool if you had some sort of partnership on those particular weekends to have an event at the stadium, ballpark, whatever the case might be. But I was just curious about, especially this Kentucky Derby weekend, that you do have some intermingling, if you will, of the spring sports that are really around something that's huge from a societal standpoint.
Right. I think you do have the ability, if you get what I call auxiliary events that you can marry with your tournament, that will help. The problem is I think those are events in themselves, so they correspond with the Kentucky Derby. Sure. So you can't move the Kentucky Derby to fit your baseball tournament. Maybe if it happens to correspond, you take advantage of it. But the calendar is probably set oftentimes where the Kentucky Derby is actually set on a weekend that is in between other events because they know they can maximize that, right? So I think that's a little bit of your challenge there. But again, I think it's an excellent question to put on the table, is really doing the exercise and trying to figure out the mind of your fandom. Why are they attending games? And if you can get that question, it'll help you determine whether it makes sense to even consider a change like that.
Let me also add, as I heard you talking about this, I thought about something that I didn't bring up, but you talked about it when you mentioned the availability to be able to go. Well, I think that ties in to your demographics and your median income of those spectators. And I would say
that's true.
If you are able to come for 5 days, you are probably either someone with those kind of means, or maybe somebody who is maybe
right.
retired.
And I guess that's my question is, I don't want to focus on the 5-day fan. I think that's a very small segment of your population in terms of our cultural means, in terms of HBCU fans and black fans. Most of those fans are not coming for 5 days. So what I'm trying to focus is on the 2 or 3 days they come. How do you maximize the 2 days they come, 2 or 3 days they come?
So I think
generally your crowd picks up in terms of folks' availability is because they can have the means to be able to afford to come 2 or 3 days. And they have the availability. That's the other thing that you got to think about, Brian. Do they have availability? Most folks work a traditional schedule, which means they work Monday through Friday. So their availability tends to be the weekend. So the question is how do you maximize the weekend? You maximize the weekend because if you can get more teams there, you get more fans of those teams that are likely to come. Versus if you have your championship game, you're really just concentrating on the fans of those teams. Your auxiliary fans are not really going to come. Those are your local fans that are coming. Local fans can come regardless of when you play the game. They're local. They're taking at most a 30-minute drive, right? You're talking about how do you maximize the number of fans. It's when you really boil it down, and that's what I was trying to get people to think about. It's really where are you trying to increase the amount of your fans? Because there's two different things. If you're talking about marketing an event, then you're talking about increasing the local fans themselves in the event versus how do you maximize the number of your fans? So two different questions.
I think you're also saying if I'm starting an event on the weekend, I'm expecting high attendance, high numbers, maybe from my hotel visits at the beginning of the tournament, knowing that it's going to go down as we move into the midweek where now it becomes more localized versus you starting midweek where it's more localized and rising towards the weekend.
Correct.
Where, yes, you may have fewer fan bases, but you in the sacrifice, what you may have is you may have more loyal fans, more casual fans, more fans that are spending at the end than maybe at the beginning. I think that's the financial part of it that is interesting to analyze as well.
Correct. That is exactly right. But the question becomes is, do you get more? The key to
where do you factor in television? When you say more.
No, I'm not talking. I'm talking about people there. Television is going to take care of itself. Because whether the game, if your television fans, they could care less. Game Saturday, Tuesday. For the most part, they're going to watch.
Eyes are going to be there. Eyes are going to watch.
Eyes are going to be there. I'm talking about those patrons that are actually coming. You see what I'm saying? You just by definition, you have the opportunity to get 8 teams fans to come versus just 2 teams, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, before we close up, I did want to have this one thing so you have something to think about next week for the show. Another homework. Sources: Big 12 lands private capital deal. The Big 12 has struck its long-discussed private capital deal. The first such publicized conference-wide agreement in a major college sports. I want to put that out there, major college sports. The league's presidents and chancellors ratified the 5-year agreement with capital partner Red Bird last week, as well as Weatherford Capital, finalizing a 3-pronged package to deliver an infusion in capital, at least $12.5 million, to the league office to drive commercial development and business growth. I want you to think about that. Offer schools an opt-in capital credit line of $30 million each, and create a strategic business partnership that could pay off when the conference next goes to market for its media rights. So again, one of the first parts of this, Charles and Brian, is the fact the infusion of capital, because they didn't give away private equity that you think about. Usually when you sell a business where you got to sell off, the presidents couldn't get behind that. They were shy about thinking about what we traditionally think when we talk about private equity, that you allow folks to buy stakes in your organization. We've seen that a little bit at the professional level. Even they're hesitated, but colleges were just not ready to go there. But this is different where they're talking about a capital infusion is the term they want to use, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's specifically driven for commercial development. This is what I want you to think about what they're saying, and where I first said when I read this, and then I read a secondary article that verified this. A lot of your sports venue, you see this mostly at the professional level, and you're starting to see it creep in the college level, particularly for the, what I like to call the Super 2, Charles, and the Power 2, and some G5s for that matter, where people are, Brian, they're becoming real estate investors, where they buy real estate and they turn in what I'm calling these sports entertainment districts. You've seen this a little bit, if folks may not pay attention, but Kansas has rebuilt their whole football model where they bringing in a whole sports entertainment districts. And so what the schools are doing now, since a lot of them already have the property, right? And you've seen for years they've done investments. That's how they've, in a lot of ways, beyond what we do in terms of the grant monies, they've increased their endowments in this way, buying up capital investment. Now they're even going deeper than that, where they're looking at developing these sports entertainment districts, right? Which is a further beyond what you can see maybe at HBCUs at this time, but it's something to consider. If you had that capital, do you have room, or any of our areas in such a position where schools have lands where there's enough of the population, this is key, where they can buy in and maybe land some infusion of capital is the term they're using, private equity, doing that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Charles, the commissioner of the SWAC, is thinking about this kind of stuff, of how do you create infusion. So this is the first pass, so I'm interested to see, can SWAC find its way into that area? But I wanted to ask you all next week to kind of look at that a little deeper and start thinking about what are your thoughts in terms of this new landscape of private equity corporations going into the college athletics to do what they're talking about, this capital infusion, not necessarily buying a stake in the athletic department or the institution, but buying stake in commercial development where they see that they can get a return on their investment. We'll put a pin on it right there, something to think about as we like to move into the sports business talk as we start all the time, but particularly as we get into the spring and the summer. You'll see us do a little bit more of this and pick people's brains and hopefully get folks out there talking a little bit more about what does it mean and where is sports going, particularly sports entertainment part of this and the sport business part of this, such that we're least informed of what that looks like. So thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, Bryan Fulford, giving us a little backup today, swinging the bat, pinch hitting as he does, driving us home, talking about scoring those much-needed RBIs. Appreciate you. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. That means 7 o'clock Eastern. We want to look forward to next week as we closed out this week. We'll discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. Threads, Facebook, Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil, because sports business is always in the news. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Facebook. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab YouTube, which means HBCU Sports, the sports pedagogy as we like to talk about as always. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles.
Of course.
Bryan.
Lecture.
Dismiss.